Hello and welcome to Game Objective. This week's controversy in the world of gaming has been the question of whether game journalists and game reviewers should be good at playing video games. It erupted when Ian Miles Chong, a writer for the Daily Caller, called out this video for the painfully awful gaming skills of its player, a veteran game journalist known as Dean Takahashi. It took Takahashi almost a minute and a half to figure out this simple jump in the tutorial. So, of course, people jumped on this and questioned why it seems that game journalists tend to suck at video games, which is a callback to when Arthur Gies, formerly of Polygon, had this disastrous playthrough of Doom. The tweet from Chung prompted game journalists to rally their banners and protect their own, and Paul Tamburo of Game Revolution answered that call. Cuphead reignites the game journalists should be good at games debate, he wrote. I called that out in my own tweet, saying there is no debate, that game journalists should indeed be good at games, or they should go find something that they are good at and write about that. That tweet quickly became my most liked and retweeted ever. This controversy had teeth. Columnists then started to blame the whole thing on, drumroll please, Gamergate, because Gamergate is the convenient villain whenever you need one. Dean Takahashi himself wrote a column that was published today, and it finally prompted me to make a video about this dumb controversy. In that column, he also joined the bandwagon and blamed Gamergate. Here he talks about that tweet from Ian Miles Chong, who he refused to name in the column. Quote, he used me to condemn all game journalists, raising the smoldering issues around Gamergate and its focus on game journalism ethics. His post was political propaganda for the disenfranchised gamers, the sort who went from Gamergate to the alt-right and elected Donald Trump as president. I have to admit that I did feel a little bad for the mean messages and the memes that were sent Takahashi's way. Obviously, some people were way too mean about this controversy, and there's no excuse for that. But with that paragraph, he pretty much lost my sympathy. He's using this evil, amorphous Gamergate movement as a villain because it's an easy way to politicize this controversy and make it a simple good versus evil narrative. If you're on the side criticizing him, then you're a Gamergater, and you're, therefore, evil. I'm not even going to get into how stupid it is to say that Gamergate led to the election of Donald Trump. I've already talked about that in past videos. Gamergate had nothing to do with Hillary Clinton being a horrible candidate. And if you think it did, then you just don't know what you're talking about. He went on to further lose any chance of sympathy that I had for him by saying the following, quote, the gaming industry will grow bigger and gamers will get better games if we embrace the new gamers. We don't need to dumb games down. We can have adjustable difficulty so that the unskilled and skilled alike can play. We can make tutorials even easier than the one that I failed at so miserably. That right there, that is why it's okay to criticize Dean Takahashi's skill at video games. In this paragraph, he is using his position as a games journalist to advocate for even easier tutorials than the one that he failed at. But the tutorial where he failed, it's just basic game mechanics. If you make it easier, then you have to fundamentally change the entire game because you changed the underlying mechanics. You jump and you dash. That's it. There were no enemies there that he had to jump over. There was no time limit. It's just the simplest of puzzles of the same kind that have been in video games since the very early days. And yet he says we can make these tutorials easier. He goes on to say, I would just like to make sure that they make their games for people who are new or noobs as well as hardcore fans. That is a value judgment. People have been saying you can't criticize his gameplay because he's not a reviewer. Well, there you go. Here's a guy with the ear of the game industry who is admittedly not very good at gaming, offering his opinion in an attempt to influence games. And that makes him fair game for criticism for sucking at Cuphead. It is perfectly valid to make games with the competent gamer in mind. It is perfectly valid for developers to not make games for the Dean Takahashis out there. If your game is difficult, that does not necessarily mean that it's bad. And it's perfectly valid for gamers to say that Dean Takahashi's opinion does not reflect yours as a competent gamer. My take on it is as I said in my tweet. Yes, video game writers should be good at video games. Why are you covering games if you're not good at them? And to me, being good at gaming in general does not mean being awesome at every game out there. It doesn't mean being a speedrunner or a pro gamer. It means that you can generally play games at a normal difficulty level and that you have good enough knowledge of video games to be able to talk intelligently about their design. If you're not good at a game or a genre, that's okay. Personally, I suck at card games and I'm not great at strategy games either. But you don't see me reviewing them, do you? There are a billion writers out there. If you're not at the very least competent with a game, then leave it to someone else to talk about. Someone who knows what they're doing with the game. Because that's all the audience really wants, to read interesting articles from people who know what they're talking about. That's what I think. What do you think? Should video game writers be good at video games? Let me know in the comments below. Now, as this is my first video of the new month, I now have to plug my Patreon. If you find value in my work, then I ask that you toss me $1 a month to support reasonable game journalism from someone who is indeed reasonably skilled at video games. I also have a PayPal link in the description below if you don't want to go through Patreon. As always, thank you for your support. I couldn't do this without you guys, and I really appreciate it. This has been Brad Glasgow with Game Objective. Thanks for watching.